Salutations, respected viewers. This is George from Ireland, continuing my conjecture about Brexit. That's the United Kingdom's effort to leave the European Union. Well, it's been trying for 2.5 years, and the letter expressing the United Kingdom's intention to depart the EU was only sent in March 2017. So that was about 8 months after the referendum, when the UK decided to quit the EU. And so from the dispatch of that letter, March 2017, there are 2 years to negotiate the exit process. And we're in uncharted territory because it's never been done before. So Theresa May has finally thrashed out her withdrawal agreement with the European Union. 585 pages of it, and no, I haven't read it. Of course, it'll be written in rather obscure legalese. And the opacity of this agreement makes it something that people have to rely on politicians for, who are going to praise it for them. So, I mean, I know I could read it. I do have a law degree, but forgive me, I'm not that busy. I suppose I'm just indolent. Anyway, it looks highly probable that the Commons will reject the deal. Now, even if they pass it, they go to the House of Lords. The House of Lords can delay things by up to 12 months. Now, Parliament could, the House of Commons could pass it 3 times and invoke the Parliament Act to just get it through anyway, but that's very unusual. And given the strong opposition, even if you passed it once, it would be very difficult to pass it 3 times in a short space of time. That tends to really mess up the legislative timetable. But I suppose what could be higher priority? Theresa May would really like this done and dusted, because then that would be in the bag. That would be a massive score for her. Even if you think it's a fairly shabby deal, it would be achieved rather than just prolonging the uncertainty and the speculation about what on earth is going to happen, all of which is bad for market confidence. It's undermining the UK economy. But anyway, likely it'll be voted down, right? So then Theresa May might go back to Brussels for some last-minute haggling. But Brussels have said that we are not budging. That's it. Take it or leave it. Nuh-uh. Okay, they put an awful lot of time and endeavour into this as well. And if they offered any concessions at all, I suspect they'd be so trifling that wouldn't convince anyone to change his or her mind. Moreover, Brussels could make the deal worse for the UK. Say, well, going back to contract law, an offer is made, you reject the offer, that destroys the contract. So, you come up with a counter offer. No, we can reject that. We can make another offer, which is less favourable than the one we made first time. So that's it. So they can play hardball as well. And they might stonewall her because, Theresa May is negotiating against the clock. I mean, if it's voted down by the Commons, it may well be a vote of confidence in the government. Theresa May might fall as Prime Minister. Maybe the government might fall totally, as in the Conservative Party will lead to a new election. The Conservative Party have to elect a new leader fast. Theresa May just advised Her Britannic Majesty to appoint a Prime Minister. We've actually never had an interim Prime Minister, but there might have to be one. Anyway, there might seem to be no way forward but an election. Theresa May would have lost her authority. This losing in the House of Commons might well be fatal to her. So, my goodness, Theresa May might only have about 13 days left as Prime Minister. It is redolent of the 1990s, when the Conservative Party was tearing itself apart over the European Union. Should the Maastricht Treaty be ratified? And in the end, it was ratified by 1 vote. It was a dead heat. So the Speaker of the House of Commons had to pass the tiebreaker, which is almost unheard of. And Betty Boothroyd, she voted for the government, the Conservative government. And obviously the Labour Party, very sardonically, voted against Maastricht despite being in favour of it, because they just wanted to see maximum discomfiture on the Tory benches. So a leadership contest, well, I think she'd been held below the waterline. She must just say, oh, forget it. It's been nothing but grief. She's had, nothing but this destructive criticism for ages. The Tory party is so fault-finding. She was given a brief. She attempted to achieve her mission, to achieve her mission with Brexit, and it was never going to be easy. She could never satisfy the ultra-leavers or the ultra-remainers. Anyway, for the Conservative Party, perhaps another referendum might be better. Theresa May might tear up that pledge not to hold another referendum, might be the only way to save her leadership, or indeed to break the impasse with regard to Brexit. So I would suspect that all Remainers will remain Remainers, as in everybody who voted Remain in 2016 would do so again. Now, a few Leavers might go the other way. Remember last time, the polls showed Remain would win 52%. In fact, they won 48%, as in Leave got 52%. Think of the way the politicians campaigned. Only about 40% of Conservative politicians were Leavers. About 90% of Labour politicians were Remainers. So if there is an election, it'd be very likely that Labour would be the largest party. They might form a coalition with the Liberal Democrats or even the SNP. More likely confidence and supply with the SNP, possibly the Liberal Democrats as well. And the condition of that might be no Corbyn as leader, but more likely a referendum. Now, most Labour MPs want a referendum anyway. So Theresa May doesn't give them one. Corbyn would come in and he'd find that very difficult to resist. Remember, he's not popular amongst his own parliamentary party, though he's got a lot of zealots backing him amongst grassroots. Don't forget, his own party tried to kick him out only a couple of years ago. So the only way to mollify them is to say, fine, we'll have this referendum and democratic mandate, especially if it's in the Labour manifesto. If elected, we will hold another referendum on Brexit. Now, Corbyn, he rejected the call for a second referendum, but he didn't do so with a great deal of conviction. His heart wasn't in it, just like as when he campaigned against leaving the EU. You know, he's a passionate campaigner, he's a firebrand orator, but somehow the zeal was really lacking in his oratory when he was on the campaign trail for Remain. So it would be very difficult to secure more favourable terms than May has done if Corbyn tried negotiating anyway. So likely it would go to a referendum with three options: remain in the European Union, or accept the withdrawal agreement, or leave the EU without an agreement. Those are probably the three options. Now the trouble is, if it was a three-way split, theoretically somebody could win, or one of these options could win, with 33.1% of the vote. That would be preposterous, especially if it was Remain or something, but I don't think it's going to happen. So probably what we'd have to do is ranked preferences. Put a number 1 beside your first choice, put a number 2 by your second choice. If you have one, you might only have one choice you want to make. And last of all, well, the third choice, that's just by default. It's obvious which the third one is. You don't even have to write a number 3. And so if no option gets over 50% the first time, we could see what's left. Trouble is, Leave did get over 50% last time. I think that's what they would do. I mean, actually, I don't agree. I think Remain should be ruled out because it's lost. That's it. We're leaving the EU, and it's just a question of which kind of leaving the EU we're going to have. So he would have to hold a referendum. The demand to resolve the situation would be deafening, and it's very likely he would cave into that pressure. Partly the only way to keep his party together, the Liberal Democrats and SNP would wear it. And, you know, there are hardline Remainers in the Tory party, only about a dozen of them. More of them might come out of the woodwork in the election, or if there was a new government. I remember Nigel Farage saying years ago, these Conservative Eurosceptics, they're not half so Eurosceptic as they pretend. They're playing to the gallery because they know that it garners votes, but deep down they don't believe that. In their private conversations, they are closet Europhiles. So I think that's what would happen: an election and or a referendum, and Remain probably leaving. Unfortunately, I think the UK probably will remain in the European Union. I desperately want to be proven wrong. I'm never one for wishful thinking. I always strive to be dispassionate, to lay aside what I want to happen and objectively sift the evidence. And that's why I'm making this plaintive forecast.